Welcome back to the Socialist Report, everybody. We got this article from World Socialist website. Apparently, World Socialist website interviewed Kentucky-based Wildland firefighter Ethan Osborne. He is the guy I voted for the congressional district. But we're just going to get right into it. And this article is from Zach Thornton. Let's go. Interview with Kentucky-based Wildland firefighter. They would work us off the clock a lot, all unpaid. Ethan, a Wildland firefighter, recently spoke with the World Socialist website about his experiences on the job, as well as his thoughts on the intersection between corporate negligence on the part of the power utilities and climate change, which has led to more frequent extreme weather events, including wildfires. At least they didn't use the term global warming. Based in Kentucky, Ethan describes himself as a forestry laborer, which encompasses a lot of different things. Describing his journey to becoming a firefighter, he said, I've worked outside most of my life, beginning in high school. The first job I had was as a farmhand. I've lived all over the place in Kentucky, but a lot of my upbringing was in a rural area. My mom was a teacher and my dad was a truck driver, and we grew pumpkins on the side. The first real job I had was as a landscaper. My entire career has been built on outdoor green collar work. Eventually I went to college for geography, and I was also a Marine, but I never saw combat. Started doing tree work after I got in some trouble, ended up getting locked up in Kentucky and California. Most of my time was in Kentucky. I got a felon for reckless endangerment by getting loaded and trying to commit suicide by a cop. It's hard to talk about, but it's part of my story. When you get a felony, in many ways, it can be like a sentence of a life of hard labor, because typically those are the only jobs you can get. So once I got out, I started doing tree work as an arborist, tree climbing, logging, forestry, and then eventually wildland firefighting. Asked what someone in his role typically makes, Ethan said, starting out, we make $13.50 an hour. But because I'm certified on a chainsaw, I'm making $14 an hour. That's typically what everyone makes. I think the government force agencies pay a little better. We usually work a minimum 12 hours a day, but sometimes 15 to 16 hours. We work 14 days straight, and we work a full 14 days. That's about $2,800 after taxes. It's highly exploitative. Adding, they would work us off the clock a lot too, usually 2 or 3 hours a day, all unpaid. Describing some of the typical dangers associated with the profession, Ethan explains, the last fire I was on, a snag, basically a burnt tree trunk, fell on a guy and killed him. There was also someone who was killed by a rolling rock. He wasn't on my crew, but it was at a fire I was at. Rollers and snags are the two biggest hazards, along with the terrain, which is very steep. When asked if he is provided with adequate tools to do his job, he responded, not really. They give us 2 pairs of Nomex flame-resistant clothing, and that's supposed to last us 14 days. A lot of times they'll give us used Nomex with holes and rips or they don't fit properly. A lot of the hand tools are faulty. These companies have enough money to provide workers with the proper tools, but they don't. They don't issue boots either. You have to pay for your fire boots. They don't reimburse for travel or lodging. The smoke and dust is really bad, but they don't provide us with respirators. I've never seen anyone wearing one. Pretty much our only option is a wet bandana. Critically underfunded state and federal fire agencies such as CAL FIRE in California and the U.S. Forest Service often resort to prison labor in order to keep costs down. Ethan explained, it's very common, especially in California. Every fire I was on, they usually had the inmates go in first, and they were there for a while before we moved in. I saw inmates in Oregon and California. Those are 2 states I worked in during the 2022 season. They basically use the inmates kind of in a way that's similar to scabs. I'm not disparaging the inmates until I understand that if you have a chance to get out of a cell, you're going to take it. They pay them way less than minimum wage, probably a few dollars an hour. It's hard for workers to organize when there's such a massive pool of inmates that can be used to counter worker organizations. That's why you never really see talks of strikes with Wildland firefighters, because there's such a large prison population. While the private contractors do not make use of inmates, they usually take advantage of ex-convicts, who they recognize as having very few options, thus allowing them to be exploited with impunity. I started working on a tree crew in 2013 or 2014. A lot of them are privately owned. They take advantage of ex-cons who are fresh out because they're usually poor and on probation, so they're limited with what they can do. My old boss on that tree crew loved to use ex-cons for that reason. They also don't discriminate about which ex-cons they use. It's not uncommon to have a white supremacist or other ultra-right individuals, very dangerous people working side by side with you. On the tree crew I was the only one who wasn't a part of them, and they put me in situations that are highly uncomfortable. When asked about the impact of climate change, Ethan stated, "When I moved to California, 2012, there were fires everywhere, and every year they got worse and worse. This past year was somewhat surprising because usually the fire season is from August to late October. Now it's so unpredictable. I noticed they're trying to hire more firefighters here on the East Coast. We almost had some here in Kentucky get out of control, but fortunately rain moved in and stopped them. With climate change, wildfires are happening in places where they haven't traditionally been. It's really exacerbating everything. One of the defining features of many wildfires is the negligence of the power utilities. In 2018, negligence on the part of Pacific Gas and Electricity (PG&E) led to one of the world's deadliest wildfires, the Camp Fire, which killed 85 people and destroyed the town of Paradise, California. Speaking to this, Ethan said PG&E's negligence has certainly caused quite a few of the most disastrous wildfires in recent memory. I think the utilities should be seized and nationalized. I support public ownership of the power grid. These energy companies are definitely to blame for their negligence. They caused the car and campfires, mismanagement, faulty equipment, vegetation too close to the power lines. Those are issues that have led to disaster after disaster. In my area, we have a lot of problems with trees being close to the power lines. They won't cut them back and stuff, so, which I live in the same state as the story, so. But, that's from Ethan Osborne. He is, here, let me look up what he refers to himself as. It's a leftist ideology, but it's not an actual socialist. I think it was what was it that he recognized as his ideology? I think it's in his about section, or biography. I think it's what Russell Brand calls himself. Can't even hardly see this, but syndicalist. Yeah, he's a syndicalist. Pro-labor syndicalist. Alright, but yeah. he ran for Congress in my area in Kentucky, and I ended up voting for him in the midterms. But yeah, that's going to conclude this video. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you follow Ethan Osborne on Twitter. Got pretty good. Got some pretty good views, and yeah. So see you next one. That's an old outro. Try not to kill each other. But see you next one. Peace out. This has been the Socialist Report.